Welcome to Women in the Arena podcast, the podcast celebrating women doing extraordinary things in plain sight. I'm your host, Audra Egan, and our mission is to elevate the value, strength, and resilience each woman brings to the world. Without further delay, let's go ahead and start the show. Welcome in, everyone, and welcome back. You know, the holidays are really nice, but it's also really nice to get back into the swing of things, and I really missed you guys, so thank you so much for being here. And those of you that are new, I'm Audra, and I'm your host of the Women in the Arena podcast. And this is literally a celebration, and we are celebrating women doing extraordinary things in plain sight. And we've made it to season 2. That is super exciting, and we have so many incredible women that I cannot wait to introduce you to. So if you're ready, I am really ready. So let's go ahead and start the show. Welcome in, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today, I have a lovely lady joining me. Her name is Adrienne Barr, and she is the best-selling author of the children's book, Dancing with Butterflies, Discovering Mindfulness Through Breathing. She is a proud single mother, as well as a full-time human resources professional that has dedicated to helping people work through anxiety and stress. It is my pleasure and my honor to welcome Adrienne Barr. Adrienne, thank you so much for joining me, and welcome to the show.
Hi, Audra. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be talking with you today.
Well, I'm so happy that you are here because you have a very particularly important topic, especially right now, because, 2020 has been nothing but anxiety and stress.
Yes. Yes, it has, especially with all things COVID and the children, trying to navigate what school looks like and those big changes. And then, of course, adults too, trying to navigate those changes. Yes, anxiety is definitely a hot topic issue right now.
Yeah, it's at an all-time high. And that's what we're here to discuss today. But before we get into that topic, I know that we'd all like to know a little bit more about you. So would you let us get to know you a little bit?
Absolutely. I am the oldest child of my two parents who actually met in the Army. So they both served. So I'm a former Army rat. And when my mom retired, we moved down to North Carolina. So I'm a North Carolinian. I graduated from Johnson C. Smith with a bachelor's in communications with a minor in telecommunications. I often joke that, my daughter got her degree with me because I actually had her the spring of my senior year. And, I'm still very proud to say that I, graduated with, granted, a 4-month-old baby on my hip. But, it was still, incredible to see that.
You're amazing. Yeah, that's not easy. You went to school full time and you were pregnant and gave birth and graduated. So good on you.
Thank you. Yeah, college is expensive. And I was like, I don't want to waste, I don't want to use this as an opportunity to quit, right? Because that's not the answer. And what type of example would I be to my daughter if, I say, oh, okay, well, I almost made it. No, I made it, and I know that that's not everybody's situation or everybody's option. But I was definitely blessed with some incredible professors while I was at Johnson C. Smith who even let me bring my daughter to class, which was weird. And they're like, hey, why did you come without her? Having conversations like that. But my major also allowed me that type of, that atmosphere because I was minoring in film. So my senior year, I was doing a lot of labs where I was editing film and things of that nature. So it was a much more less structured environment for most of my classes. So it worked out.
Well, I'm glad that they were so open to that because that's unusual, but it's refreshing because that sets you up for success as well as having a good idea of what you might encounter in the world. So today we're here to discuss anxiety and stress, but you have a really unique perspective on it that you wrote this beautiful book called Dancing with Butterflies. So tell us about the book and what inspired you to read this, or excuse me, write this.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Dancing with Butterflies, it's an early reader book. So, it's, preferable for kids who are, ages 4 through 8, or kids who really love illustrations because the illustrations are gorgeous. But the main character, she obviously is a dancer, and her dream is to, perform on stage and, dance beautifully and, all of that wonderful stuff. So, she actually gets the opportunity. To do that, her dance teacher announces that they're having a recital. And she notices that she's starting to have these feelings of nervousness and she's not exactly sure what it is, right? So, just, like children and adults, we all do this when we don't understand where something's coming from. Sometimes our first reaction is to ignore it, where we're thinking that, okay, well, this feeling is going to pass by. Unfortunately for her, it does not. So it does come back up. And then she finally has the conversation with her mother and says, hey, I'm having this feeling. And her mother lets her know, hey, it sounds like you're having the butterflies, right? So it starts the conversation for her mother to teach her breathing techniques. That way she can breathe through her anxiety, get very clear head, get in tune with her body. That way she can, dance her way on the big stage for, her grand moment.
So that is the name Dancing with Butterflies. So that's which is beautiful because it is teaching children how to manage stress, how to deal with stress. And that is probably more critical now than ever because we've put our poor kids through a lot this year.
Yes, exactly. I know my daughter firsthand, especially when the pandemic first hit. She really wasn't as engaged as she used to be. And then, of course, me being the mother that I am, I started doing some research. And of course, when children, they start distancing themselves, when they start changing behaviors, when they start sleeping a little bit more, those are usually those cues that, something's going on emotionally or mentally. So, that was her signs of anxiety. So it took some working through to kind of get her out of that, to shake some stuff up, open up the blinds, because vitamin D is probably one of the best medicines that you can ever have. Just going out there, getting some sunshine and just spending more time together. That's, really what helped bring her out of it.
Well, you in your book, through the book, I should say, discuss techniques on how to manage stress, handle stress. So what are those techniques that you've now broken down for children to be able to digest? So what are those things that you have been teaching them?
Absolutely. So the book specifically highlights breathing. So, being in tune with your breath and just, counting to 4, breathing in slowly, and then exhaling, to the count of 4 as well. And doing that repetitively, that helps you get in tune with your body. And that helps to actually, calm the body down. So once we get centered, that, is helpful. Breathing is also a huge, thing that you need to do when you are in meditation. You have to be in control of your breath, listen to your breath, be in tune with it, and just, have that moment in stillness so you can recalibrate for sorts, just to clear, and then you can just go forth and be clear minded. Another thing that is also highlighted is that we may not talk about is dance. There are a lot of people who use dance as a form of therapy to, deal with any anxieties, deal with any stresses. So that's a beautiful way as well. And then, of course, community. So talking to, your closest friend, talking to your parent, whomever about what's going on, as opposed to bottling it up inside. All of those things are highlighted in the book, just to show people that, hey, there's more than one right way to be able to, manage your anxiety.
Well, let's start with the first one of breathing and managing your breath. I've heard this a lot and I've read about it. But the truth is that I really don't quite understand why controlling your breath is so important. And like I said, I've read about it a lot, but I still don't quite understand that. So can you help me understand why breathing and being in tune with your breath is so important, both psychologically and physically?
Absolutely. So if you think about who you are when you're stressed, and if you're really paying attention to your body, right? Your shoulders get all tense. Everything pretty much tenses up. You might lock up in your jaw. And if you're paying close enough attention, you'll notice that your breathing pattern changes. Your breath actually gets a lot shorter. So when your breath gets shorter, that is actually, reducing the amount of oxygen that's going to your brain. So that is like the full experience of what your body goes through when you're in a stressful situation. So when you're taking those deep breaths and they're intentional, you are using the full capacity of your lungs. You are allowing all of that oxygen to get to the brain. And of course, the more oxygen that gets through the brain, it actually helps to calm you down. It releases those, those good vibrations, those good feelings to just calm down. So that's pretty much the basis of it. And it definitely does help. I know, especially in situations like when I first started promoting my book on Facebook, I had to eat a lot of crow because public situations kind of make me nervous. So I had to just do my breathing meditations before. I know YouTube has a lot of wonderful free breathing meditations that you can do, even with your kids. I believe Audible also has some free ones out there too that comes with whatever your subscription is too. So there's a lot of cool ways to implement that and to get access to it.
So, as you're teaching these kids at a young age, so you're teaching them how to breathe and the importance of breath and being able to manage that stress. I'm curious, if you start teaching children how to manage the stress and anxiety at a young age, how does that affect them as they mature, as they become teenagers, young adults, and then and eventually to adulthood?
So, when they're learning it when they're younger, of course, when children are smaller, they're essentially little sponges. So implementing that as early as you can, that's a lesson that they'll never forget. So when they get into those moments where they're, high stress, they'll automatically know what to do. So it just basically shifts the culture from a stress, high demand, and in some, regards, a fear-based culture, just to have the children to settle down, and it's already embedded in their practice. They automatically know what to do and what avenues to go to. Because I know I'm an 80s baby. So, we just kind of muscle through everything and we're always on to the next,
Absolutely.
right? We go to the next project and the next one and the next one, without even taking a moment to, number one, pat ourselves on the back, and to number two, just to bask and enjoy in the present. Our generation, we're definitely forward thinkers, which unfortunately it plays heavy on our overall health, now and in the future. I believe one of my friends was, making me aware of a study saying that, people who don't, give their selves time to just have that moment to just relax, to take a breather, and who are in high stress situations, those are actually the people who end up getting dementia and, of course, a host of other things, high blood pressure. So just, anxiety and having it and dealing with it and not actually managing it and not taking the time that your body actually needs to recover, because sometimes sleep is the way that you need to recover too. Sometimes you need rest. Sometimes you need to cut back on caffeine. Those are other things that actually do increase your anxiety too. So we have to make sure that we take the time that we need, because this affects our in the rest of our lives. So yeah,
Yeah.
and the health of it, and the way that we're going to live it, and how we're going to show up for our kids and our grandkids. So it's a beautiful lesson to teach them now.
I would agree. And I wish that I had known this when my kids were younger. I wish I had known this when I was younger, quite frankly. And being able to teach children at an early age definitely sets them up for success and a lifelong habit. However, we are smarter, older, and better, and can start now with our children. For
Mhm.
those of us that weren't so smart, when we were younger, teenagers, I don't know, yesterday, we're not so smart about being able to take care of ourselves, manage our anxiety, manage our stress. And you, especially because you work in human resources,
Mhm.
how do you help reset an adult?
You have to. It's not as easy. I'm a firm believer in self care, and a lot of times it comes with conversations. And I even had to be more deliberate with scheduling myself in to my schedule, um, and whatever that looked like. So if that looked like, me waking up an hour earlier just so I can have some me time before I devote my time to everyone else, that's fine. If that meant that I need to say no to something that is scheduled because I'm not feeling it and to push myself through it that day may not be what's best for me, then I do that. I just listen to my body, but you really have to be very intentional about it. So, you can't talk about it enough, and it just has to become a daily practice. And, there are moments where, maybe what self care might look like for me is not going to be the same thing for you. Maybe I need to go see a therapist, and that's my version of self care. On a very personal note, I just recently got out of therapy in April, and it was definitely a 9-month process. um, and it definitely felt like, okay, I'm ready to push this baby on out because this is getting, I'm a little sick of this. But it actually, ended up being for my highest good. It's the best thing that I've ever done for myself, was actually immersing myself in that program and to help myself step away from my broken record that I had played in my mind. And to show me that, it's okay to have boundaries. It's okay to take off the superwoman cape because our generation, we also have a superwoman complex. And, sometimes it's hard for us to take off that cape. And,
Not only do we have the superwoman complex, but we have the imposter syndrome along with it. So we're
mhm.
just basically walking, talking, um, beating ourselves up all the time, basically.
Exactly. I'm so glad you brought that up because I was actually speaking to one of my friends today about that, with the book and, it's bestseller. It's doing, wonderful things way out of the scope that I could have ever imagined. And, you know, although it's unbelievable, it still doesn't feel like I did it, if that makes sense.
Totally
Um,
does.
yeah. So I'm just like, I'm doing this. This is happening, but this is happening for me. And then just having to work through those emotions like, okay, is this really for me? Is this true? Is this real? Is somebody going to be able to take this away from me? Am I qualified? And the answer is yes, because I know what I created. I love what I created, and obviously other people do too. So it's okay for me to accept the goodness that has come into my life, and having that conversation with yourself too. That too is self care. When it comes to the way that we think, the way that we look at our bodies. I have a conversation with myself in the mirror, and I know I sound a little woo woo, but I have
Sometimes
that.
we need a little woo woo. I mean, let's
Exactly.
face it, sometimes we need it.
Exactly. So I have a conversation with myself in the mirror, and I'll look and I'll say, Adrienne, you're beautiful. You're beautiful inside and out. Okay. Regardless of, what things might shrink or stretch or, hang or sag, you're still beautiful inside and out. And I love and I appreciate everything about who you are now, who you were yesterday, and who you're, going to be in the future. And, that is self care too. Reading a book is watching your favorite TV show. So there's several varieties of what it is. It's just sometimes you have to gear people back and saying, hey, schedule yourself in, set up proper boundaries. I know with work from home, I've done an awesome job. I'm very proud of myself for setting up boundaries and saying, look, I start at 9 and I'm getting off at 5 because, the hours before and the hours after are dedicated to me and my daughter. And I know I did not have that. I had to learn that. And I saw what not having boundaries with my job did to me. So that was something that I had to be very intentional about.
I'm actually glad that you brought that up because, like I said, this year's been hard, weird, challenging, whatnot. And the statistically, the people now that are having elevated anxiety or depression that have never had it before is staggering. From Put on your HR hat right now.
Mm-hmm.
What do we do when we've got, or what do you do as a employee and
Mm-hmm.
you're oh my gosh, I just can't handle it at all. I got to take a break, but I don't want to lose my job. And how would you recommend or direct those that are feeling that, because there's plenty of us out there that feel that know I need to take a break or else I'm going to lose it. How would you direct them as an employee to approach their employer and say, I'm carrying a lot and I might break?
Mm. I would first recommend, excuse me, that the employee go to their HR department to see if they have an EAP program. So that's an employee assistance program. A lot of people, for some reason, they associate it with like the suicide hotline of the company, and that's definitely not what that is. What it is the company has a resource that is there for you to, if you're having financial stress, if there's a website associated with whoever has their, who is hosting their EAP program, you can go online even, or if you feel like maybe you might need some counseling, you can have confidential conversations with counselors who are qualified therapists. That way you can at least get that ball rolling. So I always start off by saying that, because a lot of times we need someone that we can talk to. And sometimes it should not be family and friends, or even your employer, because you just need that unbiased opinion. And you need someone with a different perspective to take a look at your situation. And then also maybe they can guide you to some resources in your area. So that's a beautiful thing for it too. If you've exhausted that option, I would say if you have any PTO or vacation time, maybe see about scheduling some time off. Even a 3 or 4 day weekend can at least give you that moment of, breather, to just recalibrate, to spend some time with yourself, to just decompress. If by chance, like through your counseling sessions, if your specific counselor feels like maybe you need something a little bit longer, you can approach your employer about some leave options, whether that be like a personal leave if they offer it, or FMLA if you've been with the company long enough. But of course, that would have to be completed by the medical certification would have to be completed behind that before you could get that. But those would be my suggestions. A lot of times there are free resources within our communities that we don't even think of. So sometimes it's as simple as a Google search, because I know, for instance, the county that I live in, we have some free resources that we can talk to for grief counseling, for financial counseling, also for, just the overall, mental wellness. We have a organization here locally called Crossroads. So if there are anyone who's going through anything related to like maybe domestic violence, and domestic violence doesn't always look physical, it can always be mental. They have advocates on standby that can talk to you and help you through it and recommend some things too. So I definitely say look locally as well.
So there are resources, there's help. You just have to look for it.
Mhm.
So from your perspective, do you think that employers have become a little bit more understanding of family stresses, job stresses, just stresses in general? Do you think that they've come to realize that there's a lot going on?
I would like to hope so. I think it just depends on who your employer is. A lot of times they offer that information, and sometimes they don't notice the signs that there might be something going on. And let's face it, employers are people too, and I have a saying that people be people and all the time. So
Oh yeah,
sometimes,
oh yeah,
yes,
definitely. Some days
exactly.
more than most.
Exactly. So sometimes they are not paying enough attention to notice that there is something going on with you. And that's where you have to, speak up. And so whomever you're comfortable with, whether that's your manager, your work leader, or your HR department, just go ahead and start the conversation, and just let them know, hey, I'm having a hard time. Is there something that the company offers? And just starting there. Because that's free. It's already paid for. It's your employer, right? And then you also have some of those high stress environments that, you may work in. Like my previous employer, it was an incredibly high stress environment. And, luckily I was going through therapy while I was working there. But what I did notice ultimately, just by, going through the cognitive processing therapy that I was going with, that's the specific brand of therapy I was going through, I realized that this employer wasn't for me. And unfortunately, I'm not, advocating for anybody to leave. You make whatever decision is best for you. But that ended up being the best decision for me. So honestly, when the book, when I was in the very beginning stages of the book, getting it to Parker Press and Co. Um, to be published, I was jobless for a month. I walked away from my job on a week's notice with no backup, because I felt that that's what I needed, because I was really, really close to a nervous breakdown. Looking back on pictures now, I notice that I'm sure other people noticed that there was something going awry because I had lost an incredible amount of weight. And it was not on purpose, so it did not look cute. Um, but it's just and that anxiety too. Like anxiety, it also has those physical effects on you too, where you may be able to perform well, you may be able to have the mask on for everyone for several hours a day, but your body never lies. It responds in a way when you're going through high anxiety moments. And for me, it was, I lost appetite. I didn't, I lost appetite and I lost weight, and, I couldn't think as clearly as I wanted to. And it
I'm
was,
so glad you're bringing this up because I was actually going to ask you, w what are some physical signs? And so that's why I wanted to stop you because I think that that's important for you to make clear because sometimes we don't recognize or acknowledge that we are under way more stress than we typically are or way more anxiety than we typically are,
Mhm,
and we just aren't recognizing the signs. Full disclosure, when back in May, when we were in the clutches in the middle of all of this nonsense, uh, I was exhibiting signs of extreme anxiety and stress, didn't know it, had
mhm,
no idea. And it was my husband that said, You need to stop and you need to do something different because this and this and this is happening. And I had no clue.
mhm,
So, because I thought I was doing just fine. I thought I was, handling it all and keeping on trucking, but I didn't recognize the signs. So, like I said, I wanted to slow you down for a moment and repeat the physical signs because sometimes we just don't know.
Sometimes we don't know. So it could be, you could notice that your heart might be beating faster. If you have an annual physical and your blood pressure is up, sometimes that's a very subtle sign, especially if it's up more than from your previous time that you've gotten your blood pressure checked. You could lose weight. And, for instance, when I lost weight, I didn't even really notice that I had lost weight. Somebody had to tell me, you're losing weight. And I was like, what? Like,
Mhm.
I didn't even notice that. Sometimes it could be, you know, grinding at night. So, that is the sign too. So like grinding your teeth in your sleep, um, changing color of complexion. It's quite extensive. Some people even lose hair behind, anxiety and high levels of stress. So it's one of those things where you really have to pay attention to your body. Hopefully like similar to your situation where, you have your husband who said, look, baby, like this is what's going on. We got to fix something here. Hopefully you have people in your life that can help you pinpoint those things. But, and honestly, if you're a person who used to do something and maybe you don't do it as much, that can be a sign too, right? So the things that we love to do, we want to do those as often as possible. And when we're not doing those things, sometimes that's a sign too, or we don't feel like doing anything. That can be a sign as well.
So, coming full circle and coming back to your book, Dancing with Butterflies. So, how does your character come out of anxiety? Because obviously, we don't all want to stay in that heightened state of anxiety. Children, adults, nobody wants to stay there. But how does your character finally work her way out?
Right. So the recital day is here. She's all dressed up. She's ready to go on stage. And of course, those feelings come back. And her mother is sitting front row, which is beautiful. She's her mother sitting front row, and she just gives her that gentle reminder to just breathe, because she, notices that, and she knows that her daughter, has expressed to her that, she's, experiencing these feelings, and she just goes out there and she rocks it. And I think that that's a huge thing too. Sometimes we need those subtle reminders that everything's going to be okay. You have it in your power to control this, and it's okay to put one foot in front of the other in spite of whatever fear it is that you have. So that's the it's not necessarily said directly in the book, but that was the biggest message that I wanted to drive home, is that regardless of, how you are feeling, and if you are anxious and you're in those anxious moments, you take the time that you need to breathe, to learn, to get in tune with your body, but still move forward. Because usually those highly anxious moments sometimes come when we're at the precipice of something, magnificent for ourselves. And it's just one of those bodily cues where it's just like, okay, something great is about to happen. Am I good enough? Am I capable enough? That type of thing. And absolutely, yes, you are. Just keep breathing your way. That way you can shine your way on stage.
Oh my goodness, that is, like I said, that is such beautiful imagery, and I thank you for writing this book. I think I know that you wrote it for the intent of children, but I think that it's something that we all can relate to because you make it so easy for it to be digested and understand. So thank you for writing the book. If the audience wanted to purchase a copy of this book, where can they find it?
Absolutely. So if you want to purchase, you can get a copy of it on Amazon. I have it on Amazon in paperback, hardback, and ebook. Excuse me, on ebook as well. And then it's also on booksamillion.com and barnesandnoble.com.
That is fantastic. So is there another book in your future?
Yeah, so the thing that COVID has afforded me was some extra time, some extra time to actually spend some really good quality time with myself, which is fantastic. So I actually have 2 other books that I've written. So I'm really excited to get those going. I'm just, like I mentioned earlier, I'm wanting to enjoy this moment and to give myself some grace and saying, hey, okay, so this is book number 1. I've taken some courses, that way I can learn how to self-publish next time. But I'm just really trying to bask in the moment and do, my first book, the justice that I feel like it deserves, because, essentially this book is a love letter to my inner child. So I want to make sure that I take care of her.
Well, thank you for saying that, because that will remind us all to take care of ourselves and take care of each other. So thank you for that reminder. Before I let you run away, you know what time it is.
Uh-oh. Okay. All right. I think I'm ready. What you got,
I-
girl? What you got?
Okay. All right. What book have you read that you think everybody should read?
Phew, that's a good one. I think that you should definitely read The Alchemist. That is a wonderful, wonderful book, and the name of the author actually escapes me right now. But it's one of my favorite books. It's a journey of the heart, and just essentially the premise is to follow your heart. A lot of times our mind gets in the way of what our heart truly desires. So that means that our heart doesn't speak as loud, which that could be detrimental to our souls. At least that's what I got from the book, but it's a great book. And also The Four Agreements, that one's by Paulo Coelho, I believe. And that's an awesome book, just, teaching us how to be, better people.
Well, it's completely coincidental, but I happen to be reading both of those right now.
Oh my gosh, please tell me how you like them after you're done.
I will. Like I said, completely coincidental. No, we did not plan this. I happen to be reading both of those right now. I've never, ever, ever read 2 books together at once in my life, but I am now. It's not as easy as it looks.
No, it's not. And right now, I'm reading like 6 books at the same time. So if this were the Page Master and I were Macaulay Culkin, I think I'd be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be in a lot of trouble. My books would kill me right now, because they're like, look, you can't possibly keep all this information straight. But it's, in a weird way, I'm able to compartmentalize that many books at the same time and still remember the storylines.
Well, you must have more brain capacity than I do, because I just can't do it.
It's all good.
So, next question is, have you figured out what your superpower is yet?
That's a good question. I would say my superpower is being very compassionate. I like to be there for my friends and my family. My other superpower would be being non-judgmental. I'm a full believer in we all, go through things and things make us react to, certain ways. And sometimes you just need that non-judgmental friend to go to who's just going to love on you, even if you were in the wrong and say, girl, you wouldn't right in that situation. But I still love you though. So I would say that those are my superpowers.
I think those are great superpowers to have because, yeah, every once in a while you need a friend to go, you screwed up, but I still love you. What did you learn?
What did you learn? And how are we going to fix it next time? Do you have an idea?
Yeah,
That type of thing. Yeah.
exactly. So, last question. The world is changing. It's
Mhm.
evolving.
It
And
is.
COVID has afforded us a lot of opportunity.
Mhm.
It it's been hard, but in the middle of a dilemma is always opportunity. So
Mhm.
besides your books, what opportunity has this dilemma afforded you?
Oh, wow, Audra, that's a really good question. I
I got to
will
keep you
say
guys on your toes.
yes, and you did a great job. Time. Time is probably the biggest thing that I needed that I didn't know that I needed because I thought I had enough of it, if that makes sense. I am incredibly active in my community. I'm incredibly active in my church. So pre-COVID, I was on two praise teams, two choirs. I was also doing the Unity Day choir. And then I was serving with a junior women's club here locally. And then I had my daughter in a lot of stuff too. So I was always ripping and running. So to get that hard stop where we all had to go sit in our rooms and learn whatever lesson we had to learn, that was incredibly refreshing. That time is what I needed more than anything. And I'm so grateful for it.
I have said it many times on this show that COVID has been a gift. Uh,
Mhm.
it hasn't always felt like one, but by the time we get on the other side of it, I know that more people will agree with me.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially, when you just find that thing that it is that you needed to like clean up. Because, when you're at home and everybody else is too, you might be able to connect with people, but then you also have that extra time to sit with yourself and to ask yourself those hard questions. At least I do. Ask myself those hard questions. I'll journal about it and just kind of work my way through some of the thoughts that are going through my head, or I'll just write, or I'll just walk around here and dance horribly and sing very loudly. So I
Mhm.
had more time to do more of that. So that was nice.
Well, I always take the opportunity to dance pretty much anywhere. I mean, if you guys listen to my interview about me, I will dance anywhere. And sometimes you just need to dance it out.
That's
Some,
right. That's right. Yeah. And I
uh,
about the electric slide, that was actually one of my favorite songs growing up. Favorite songs growing up. So kudos to you for that being your jam of jams. Yes.
it is my jam of jams. It definitely is. So before I let you go for the afternoon, one last statement to the audience that you can leave them with.
Okay. I'm definitely going to say with these strange and unusual times that we're in, um, number one, spend time with your family. If you're, not doing it, try to reconnect with the ones that maybe have lost touch with, friends included. Um, I would even say, just give yourself some grace. I know that things are different. I know that things are hard. But as much grace as we give to others, we also have to give that to ourselves. So I would like to leave that message with everyone.
Thank you. That is an amazing reminder, one that we probably need to remind ourselves every single day. And Adrienne, thank you. Thank you so much for being here with me. I very much appreciate your time and your gift.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. This has been fun. I really appreciate it.
No. And I thank you all for listening, and we'll see you again next time. And that's a wrap. Thank you all so much for being here. I can never give you enough gratitude because without all of you, none of this is possible. I am still always in awe that my guests are volunteering to be so bold in their vulnerability. So thank you for continuing to do that. And to my audience isn't the right word to describe you. So to you, I thank you. You are a community. So thank you for being a part of this community, and thank you for helping to nurture it and make it grow. And of course, I have this incredible team behind me that helps me produce this every single week. For Savannah, Alan, Jessica, Tina, Tisha, and my son, Gavin, thank you so much for believing in me, believing in my mission, and continuing to help grow the Women in the Arena podcast. Thank you all so much for being here, and we'll see you next week.
This is just the beginning.
That's our show. I am so grateful for each and every one of you and your unwavering support and your continued belief in this movement that has become much bigger than me, much bigger than just a podcast. It has become this forward momentum that we are all doing together. If you are ready, or you know somebody that is ready to tell your story and share your value with the world, please connect with me. You can reach me at audra@womeninthearena.net. I am so honored and thankful that you will share your story with me, and I'll make sure that it is well taken care of. I will never stop thanking each and every one of you, and I cannot wait to talk to you again next week as we share another woman's story and we celebrate her doing extraordinary things in plain sight. We'll see you next time.